Happy Monday. Welcome to the news and why it matters. I am Sarah Gonzalez, joined by three lovely gentlemen in studio today. Mr. Stu Bergier. We've got David Harris Jr. back in the house.
Hey.
And we've got Mr. Jason Buttrell. Thanks for being here, guys. How was your weekend?
Yeah, it was fine. Thank you for asking.
You're welcome.
How was yours?
It was good. I heard you went to a dessert festival.
I did go to a dessert festival.
It's like, oh, I didn't know those existed, but that sounds amazing.
Need to have more of them.
What was your top story, Stu?
I'm fascinated by the media's reaction to Donald Trump changing his mind on three important issues, and we'll get into those.
All right, and David.
Something else that we just continue to fail to see in the mainstream media is the assault of illegals once they get back out and their detainers are being held up by ICE. It's just it's heartbreaking.
All right, Jason.
I'm always talking about Iran lately, I think, but there's just a lot going on. We did respond. It wasn't what I think a lot of people expected, but the future ramifications are pretty frightening when you think about the future of warfare.
All right, obviously, we've got a lot to get into. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Relief Factor. So Relief Factor is for those of you out there who, I know that there are a lot of you, who you're just in constant pain all the time. You just walk around and you think that that's just what life is supposed to be like. You start to get older, or you've got some previous injuries and you've tried everything. You've tried prescription drugs, you've tried everything, and nothing seems to work. You're just like, well, this is life. Yeah, that's really depressing, and it's not how it has to be. Try Relief Factor. It's 100% drug-free. It's 4 ingredients that target the inflammation in your body, which a lot of people don't realize. That's really where the root cause of your pain is. Right now, they have a 3-week quick start pack that you can get. It's $19.95, and 70% of the people who try it go on to keep ordering more. It's working for the majority of people. I'm telling you, it can work for you. It's worked for me. It's worked for Jason. It's worked for Glenn Beck, who was in a tremendous amount of pain. It is worth a try. You can go to relieffactor.com, get that 3-week quick start pack for $19.95, or you can call 800-500-8384. All right, Stu. Are you saying that Donald Trump is a flip-flopper? Is that what you're saying?
I am not saying that.
Okay.
This is what I think is fascinating about this. So there's been 3 big issues. We've talked about them, I think, all on this show. The most recent one being Donald Trump said he was going to deport a bunch of people, so going to do these ICE raids, and then made an announcement, said at the request of Democrats, I'm delaying this for 2 weeks. So he was going to have these big deportations, and then he reversed himself on it. Then you had Iran. He said he was going, he was about to do this attack, and then he announced he reversed himself on it. And then there was the tariffs in Mexico. He's going to put these big tariffs on it, and then they came to the table and they had negotiations, and he's reversed himself on it. And this is the way the media presents these things. And now they're saying, we're very concerned because there's just unstable leadership at the top here. I mean, this guy can't make up his mind. He's constantly changing it. He has no idea what he's doing. And I just find this to be completely fascinating at this point. If you had met Donald Trump yesterday, maybe that take would make sense.
Right.
If he wasn't, I don't know, one of the most well-known people in public life over the past 40 years in the United States, right? This guy's been around since the 80s, and we know who this guy is at this point. He wrote a book called The Art of the Deal, in which he outlines specifically things just like this, in which he says really tough stands, right? And then trying to get people to the table, and then he at times will say, all right, well, I'll give you one more chance. I'll give you 2 more weeks to figure this out. This is the Donald Trump we all know. The Don. This is who he is, right? Yep. And a lot of people get very worked up about the things that Donald Trump tweets and says. And I don't, because even if he says stuff that I don't like, a lot of times even with tariffs, and we would come on here and we talk about tariffs, and it's like, well, you can't tell what's going to happen because Trump doesn't communicate like everybody else. That's he is saying a lot of times things with thoughts of negotiation. And he doesn't mind coming out and saying something that is that's going to get people's attention, that's going to get people fired up to advance these negotiations. I've made the argument before that, I think to keep your sanity in this time, it's best to completely ignore the media and completely ignore everything Donald Trump says. And if you just do those 2 things, life is really calm.
It would be.
It really is. Yeah. It's funny because the media wants this both ways. They want to be able to get their audience terrified over the deportations. So they have to take him seriously and say, these deportations are coming. They're coming next week. These people are living in their homes. They're going to be worried about every knock on the door because these immigrants, these innocent immigrants, are going to be thrown out of the country. They want to scare their audience. And then they still need to be able to attack him when he doesn't do it. So then they say, well, our fallback position currently is he's unstable. He can't make a decision. Why isn't he doing these deportations he promised? It's like, wait a minute, you were the guys telling us this was terrorizing immigrants.
Yeah.
It's just this double side, like they have this, I don't want to say double standard, but it's not even a double standard. It's pretty specific to Trump, which is they know Trump says things that at times, I mean, he's even admitted it. Like he'll say things that are, I don't want to say outlandish, but like intentionally exciting to his opponents, right? He trolls them a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And so
He's a master troll.
Exactly. And built into the troll and the negotiation process a lot of times is this, he says it in a way that is the most inflammatory possible, right? They all understand this, they all know it, but they all pretend he's completely serious every time to get the max reaction out of their audience, to get the max sort of like inflame, they get all the retweets, they get all the clicks, they scare all of their viewers and listeners. And then when they reverse it, they just simply act as if it didn't happen for the past 2 years. This has been the case over and over again. And I wish the media would take a step back and say, hey, let's come up with a decision. Do we believe these things or not? Can we come up with something consistent to tell our audience? Because I think at this point, people are so obsessed with Trump in the media, and his opponents, I think, are so obsessed with the man that like they don't even hold the networks accountable. Like MSNBC's audience doesn't hold them accountable when they freak them out and then it doesn't happen. They just continue to like thrive and thirst for this sort of like constant like caffeine-induced news, when in reality, I think like if you step back and say, there was a lot of worries about Donald Trump coming in as president, and even conservatives had them at the time. Well, you come back and look at it, and it's like, has this guy been that different than other presidents? Yes, he says other things. You know, sometimes he says things that are a little bit more, outlandish. But I mean, like when it comes down to policy, it's like, they do the same thing with Russia. It's like, well, Russia, he loves Russia. Look, he's saying nice things about Vladimir Putin. This guy's crazy. Well, look at his policies against Russia. Like he's been much harder on Russia than previous presidents. I feel like the whole thing gets blown up, and it's like there's this incentives for clicks and retweets and shares. And it just poisons. It poisons us. It poisons the coverage from all of these networks.
I like your comparison to the art of the deal and just deals like that. It's very similar to, we talked about last Friday, I talked about the Trump doctrine just in foreign policy. It's exactly the same as how he handles domestic policy. It's exactly the same. He'll be very like outlandish, and even, belittling to certain people. Then he'll threaten after that. Then he'll threaten to say, this is what I'm going to do. Deport so many thousands of people or whatever. He'll get straight to the point, and just like how you see, another example is like a NFL free agency, where they do similar things. They'll spread rumors. Some players will, try to like force the hand on some of the owners. Sure. But deadlines typically make deals, which is what.
Unless you're Le'Veon Bell.
Which is exactly very good point. But then in the end, they usually come up with a good between the threats between both the owners and the players and everything. Eventually, the deadline. They force the deal, and it gets done at the zero. It's exactly the same way that Trump handles both foreign policy and domestic. Exactly the same, and it's kind of working, I would say. It does bring results.
Yeah, I mean, I think there could be a fair complaint from liberals, at least against me. In that, like, I don't think I would have, give you North Korea, for example, right? I would not have given Barack Obama the benefit of the doubt when it comes to, hey, Kim Jong-un's my friend, and he's a great guy. And then previously, also, like, we're going to, fire and fury is going to rain down on the nation.
Right.
Like, at this point, with Trump, like, it's, to me, only valuable to judge him by what he does, and not at all valuable to judge him for what he says. He's thinking a different way. Right, like he's saying things as they're tied to a negotiation. Like, does he really mean he was going to rain fire and fury down on North Korea? I don't think he meant that at all. Like, and I don't think he also means that Kim Jong-un is his friend. I'm sure he realizes that this guy's a murderous dictator and he's not buddies with him. Yeah. But he's trying to get something done. Yeah. So freaking out and listening to every single word is not valuable. And I think it is legitimate to say that if some of the stuff that Trump has said, if Barack Obama said, I would be all over him for it.
Absolutely.
But I took him, he didn't talk like that. He didn't communicate like that. That was not his way.
Right.
And I think there is the same thing with, I would have freaked out on George W. Bush for some of this stuff because they communicated more like traditional presidents. Trump doesn't do that. We all understand it at this point. Stop pretending you don't know.
To that point, it just killed me over the weekend. I saw, did you guys see it was like a little video that Trump tweeted out that showed it was him and it said Trump 2020
Yeah,
and
all
then
the years kept going
all
on.
of these
All
years
these
to
years,
like
like
7,080 and everyone was like, he's trying to abuse his presidential power as if he's going to live until the year 7,080. I think we all know it was a joke, but it was, as you said, David, a master troll at that particular point.
Troll.
He really is.
He nonstop is getting the best on people. And I think he does it like you're saying too, just to throw people off. Throw the media off, give the media something to pander about while he's actually doing stuff behind the scenes to get stuff done. So
one of the issues that the media fails to cover accurately when it comes to Trump is illegal immigration. So your top story is regarding that.
Yeah, sanctuary cities. It's just, to me, the question comes back to Americans. It's like, what do Americans not understand is problematic with a sanctuary city? When you've got in Seattle, an illegal was accused of rape, went to jail, he was let out early. They didn't honor the ICE detainer to get him out, and 3 days later, he finds the same woman that's disabled and assaults her and almost chokes her to death again.
In front of her child too.
Yeah, right in front of her kid.
Gosh.
And until these politicians and the judges actually that aren't honoring these ICE detainers are held liable for some of the assaults and some of the victims what they've gone through, it's like I don't understand what's going to change. But what American can't see these things and say, hey, if somebody's here illegally, we need ICE to actually do their job and get them out of the country, especially if they've committed a crime. And yet we still continue to hear from Kamala has said it, AOC has said it, Rashid Tlaib's. It's like a chant that just continues from the Democrat politicians and even the presidential runners that they want to get rid of ICE. And my question just comes back to the American people. What are the American people not seeing, and how are so many Americans okay with allowing these liberals and these Democrats to have positions that are actually putting American people's lives and their health and their well-being in jeopardy? Because it continues to happen over and over again. We don't see it on the mainstream media. We don't see it talked about as much as we should.
Yeah, absolutely. What always strikes me as odd is when I bring this up to people and they say, well, Americans commit crimes too.
Right.
Well, yes, but that's not a pass. Like that doesn't mean we should welcome more of it. Exactly. I don't understand that argument at all.
No, it's like I get that argument from somebody actually close to me, and it's funny that this will come up, and I'll say the same thing. It's like, yeah, well, that's a completely different problem.
Right. We should solve that too. We can have a problem with both things at the same time.
Right, but here's an easy way to solve this problem.
Right.
Is don't let them in, and if they're caught and they're being a criminal or they're caught, period, they're illegally, kick them out. It's like somebody breaking into Disneyland and then they get caught and it's like, well, hey, here's a free pass for the rest of our park for the rest of your life.
Doesn't make any sense. I mean, look, people who are American citizens that were born here, if you think of them, they're kind of like our family. You get stuck with crappy family members all the time.
Right.
But like if you think of like immigrants as your friends, right? You don't have to take new friends if they bring things into your lives that suck. You get stuck with your family. You have no choice. Like yes, there's a lot of crappy people here, and I can tell you how most of them are going to vote. Coming up, and it is one of those things that like I find that to be a very bizarre argument as well, and not to mention you always see it legal immigrants and illegal immigrants are lumped in together in those stats all the time, and that's a very important distinction. Also point out that I think the sanctuary city thing is so bizarre. Like I want my town to become a sanctuary city for the federal income tax. Why can't they just say, you know what, we're not enforcing any of the federal income tax here?
Absolutely.
And, like I don't understand how these localities think that they can basically come up with their own laws. Yep. I mean, look, have
you considered running for city council on that platform? I think you could win.
I don't know if you'd ever be. Probably the second you went into the next town, you'd probably get arrested. But as long as you stay in my town, man, you'll save a lot of money. And I bet we'd have a sweet town. I bet we'd have a sweet town. But this happened with. Arizona tried to pass a state law that was going to enforce, new immigration standards, and it got overturned in the Supreme Court because they said, no, this is a federal issue. Only federal authorities can deal with it. It's like, why are cities allowed to go this way on this one thing? I mean, because I can think of a lot of laws I think are terrible in the United States. I would love my town to just start being a sanctuary city on all the stuff I don't like.
Yeah.
But I don't think we get that opportunity, unfortunately. Only the left with immigration gets it. And it's we certainly can't do it with abortion, right?
Right.
Every time.
We tried to do it with Obamacare. I remember several states tried to say, no, we're going to go our own way. And they threw out law of the land. It's the law of the land. Okay, what about immigration?
Yeah. Yep.
Again, that one issue was different for some weird reason.
All right, back in a minute. See, Bernie Sanders was asked in an interview if it was appropriate to deport people who are here illegally. No, that's not at all appropriate. All right, before we get back into the conversation, I want to thank our sponsor, Cruise Through History. I'm so jealous of you, Stu. You get to go on this.
Me too.
But also this cruise.
Amazing cruise. Let's not get carried away here. So it's in March of next year?
March of next year, we got Italy, Greece, Croatia, Israel, all together in one cruise. Plus, you see the ship. It's amazing. It's this gigantic, legit big cruise ship with all the amenities. It's all expenses paid, which includes your flight, which is really cool. From what I hear, there's going to be multiple flights going over there that are basically everybody from the cruise. So it's going to be a really cool trip. And then Bill O'Reilly's going to be there, Rabbi Lappin, David Barton, myself, and also some other older gentleman with a beard that I guess his name's Glenn Beck. He'll be there as well. It's going to be pretty cool. And, I got to say, the combination of having both something that you can kind of take on forever when it comes to the history and the experience of it, and then also the fun of a cool cruise. It's going to be a really cool time.
Yeah, so you can go to comesailaway.com. There's a bunch of different package options and little things that you can choose from. You're going to want to go there right now so you can mark your calendars next year, March of 2020, comesailaway.com. All right, Jason. Got a little, an update for us on what's going on with Iran?
Yeah, so on Friday we were talking about it was a good thing, I thought, that the president decided not to respond and attack the missile structures, their air support or anti-air capability after the downing of our drone. And what he said in his tweet was, I think, exactly right. There would have been a loss of life, and that's not a proportional response. They chose a very effective way to attack us in hitting a drone. How do you respond to a drone? Right. Attack one of their drones or what?
It's a kite.
Or maybe a kite, yeah. So it was difficult, but every single general was probably well, if you want to get close to a proportional response, attack their surface-to-air missile capability. Attack those sites.
Makes sense. It's not a crazy idea to shoot down the thing that they shot down our drone with.
Right. Yeah, and not only send a message, but also hurt their capability to do it in the future. So instead of doing that, we went down a path, or we've already gone down the path, but the first strike weapon is no longer the nuclear weapon. It's not. First strike, warfare, the history of it had gone between, Revolutionary War, we're fighting, picket lines, to we got a little bit advanced so we could hit their capability to actually supply their soldiers and train more soldiers. So we started World War II bombing and World War I bombing, industrial centers. But then again, that took forever. I think when we were attacking Tokyo, it was hundreds and thousands of planes dropping hundreds of thousands of bombs, carpet bombing an entire area, but that reduced their capability to hit us. Well, then we evolved beyond that, and then it got to the atomic bomb. Instead of thousands of planes and hundreds of thousands of bombs, we're just going to drop one bomb and take out cities. We didn't have to kill we didn't need to engage their military, just defeat their capability to actually supply their military. Now we're moved beyond that. We don't have to drop a nuclear bomb. We just have to press enter, and that's exactly what they did on Thursday. That, again, it leaked out that we hit them with a cyber attack, that instead of bombing their missile and rocket capability forces, we just shut down all their computer systems that they rely on to operate that equipment. That's insane. And apparently the way they did it,
it's crazy.
It's ridiculous. This is insane. This is the direction we're already in. Actually, if we go to war with a major nation state like Iran, Russia, and anyone, these are the metaphorical bombs that will be dropped first. It won't be cruise missile attacks, shock and awe. None of that will happen. It'll happen after the fact. But the very first attack will be attacks like this. You look further down into the future, you can see how scary this is going to get. There is no START agreement for cyber warfare. There's nothing governing this because nobody wants to admit they have the capability. It's that secret. They're in the Manhattan Project era of this, where it's very, very hush-hush. Actually, it's got the secrecy of the Manhattan Project, but we've already got the bombs. But I was reading a report out just a few days ago. They were talking about how our electric grid is the most attacked system in the country. So they rattled off, election systems, and they water systems, and anything else you can think of, hospitals, all that stuff. Those are trying to be penetrated, sure. And there was like a list of like 10 of them. But if you added up all those other systems from the cyber attacks from Russia, China, and Iran, those are the three they looked at. If you add all those up, none of those equal the amount of intrusions on our electric grid. So that's how often they're hitting our electric grid. Wow. So you can see that will be the first to go in a major conflict. Have you guys seen the documentary 0 Days? No. It's amazing. You have to look at it. It talks about what our capabilities are. They claim, there were some NSA whistleblowers in this documentary, they said that the United States has already fully infiltrated most nation states, and they picked out Iran as one of the biggest examples. Fully infiltrated their electric grid system and all of their major systems, that keep their country going and their military running. If we have that on them, isn't it pretty good assumption that China, Russia, places like that, kind of similar on us?
Well, I hope not.
You would hope not, but
hope not, for sure.
Dang.
That would be very optimistic.
But think about it. I think I read that it's like hundreds of millions that they project after several months of being if they've fully shut down power, will die. There's nothing. There's nothing governing that.
No.
There are no rules.
It's all those end time movies that show us all walking from town to town, and
that's the reality.
Nomads taking over.
It really is scary. The interesting thing about the cyber warfare, I think, generally speaking, too, is I think it was it Sum of All Fears, that movie where they buried a nuclear bomb or something I think it was one of these movies, like
Stadium or something.
I don't remember. Yeah, it was like in like Baltimore or something. I can't remember which movie it was. But the idea was that someone had imported a nuclear bomb into a major city. It was there already, just waiting and to figure out whether they were going to set it off. And that's cyber warfare. Like, we can plant all of these things and not execute them in all of these systems. So they're there, right? Like it's like we planted, instead of having to fire a missile, the missile's already there. It's just waiting to explode. And that is what's, I think, so interesting about this, is we can put all these things in these systems and kind of leave them there for years and years and years and years and just wait to execute them. And it kind of gives you an incredible amount of power. I mean, it's certainly been rumored that all this stuff has already hit us, and we certainly believe that it is. But it's a scary world, because you never know when a new crazy person takes over with that sort of capability. I mean, you've seen even Kim Jong-un in a regime with very limited technical abilities compared to a lot of these other big nations was able to, look at that Sony hack. I mean, at least it was reported that it was North Korea that was responsible for it. I mean, it's a big corporation with lots of security, not quite our government, but I mean, we all know that China's already been in our systems. We know that Russia's been in them. This is it's a scary world, and it's one of those things that I'm glad to know. I don't necessarily want to know about it every time we do something like this, but I'm glad to know we can do it, because we have to be out in front of that, or we're in trouble.
Did you guys see Ilhan Omar's tweet, I guess it was Friday or over the weekend, about Iran?
No.
Would it surprise you at all that she was just total defense of them, best pals with them? They're the victim, really, honestly.
Shocking.
No,
They have a strong track record for feminism and women's rights,
Don't they?
LGBTQ rights.
Interesting. All right, we'll be back.
We got to do something on Ilhan Omar this week, too. That stuff that came out with
I know.
the tribute.
All right, coming up next, we're doing something a little bit different in Overtime. We have got country music singer Aaron Watson, who will be coming on and joining us for Overtime. He's got a new album out. It is amazing. And he doesn't know this, but he actually is, he's very near and dear to my heart, because my husband and I, our first date was to his concert at Billy Bob's in Fort Worth. And it was before, he's actually in the control room directing this show, but it was before we really were like telling coworkers. So we were like, like, yeah, we're just all going as a big friend group and, kind of hiding.
You lied to us, is what you're saying.
I did. But we've got him coming up next. You can watch it at blazetv.com. We'll see you there.
Although, who knows if that's true, because you're a liar.
Oops.